The air around the Rosewood Hills estate shimmered with summer heat, where fountains danced lazily in the sun and the scent of jasmine trailed along marble walkways. From her balcony on the third floor, Alina Monroe stared out across the manicured lawns, her delicate hands resting on the wrought iron railing. The world outside her window was perfect, a curated paradise sculpted by wealth and legacy, but the silence of her heart was louder than the birdsong or the murmur of the breeze. 19, beautiful, an heir to the Monroe Empire, she had everything except the feeling that she truly belonged to anything that mattered. Her days were dictated by schedules, tutors, and appearances. Her nights echoed with loneliness and silk sheets and designer dreams that never comforted her. On the other side of town, where roads cracked and buses groaned and people smiled despite their struggle, Zane Akhtar was finishing his double shift at the auto repair garage. His hands were stained with grease and his shirt stuck to his skin, but his eyes, dark and determined, never lost their quiet fire. He had just turned 20 and carried the weight of his family like an anchor he refused to drop. His mother worked as a housekeeper in a wealthy neighborhood. His little sister needed school fees. His father had left when he was 10, but Zane never once let his bitterness win. He worked, he dreamed, he endured. That night, Alina sneaked out of the mansion. It wasn't the first time. She wore plain jeans and a hoodie, her golden hair tucked under a cap, her heart racing like it always did when she left behind the cage of wealth to breathe the city's real air. She ended up in Old Market Street, the part of the city her family called that place. It was messy, loud, alive. The music from a corner cafe drifted into the road, and someone was painting graffiti on a wall across the street. She smiled for the first time in days. Her car, a modest second-hand sedan she kept hidden from her family, stalled just as she tried to turn into the alley behind the cafe. She sighed, tried again, nothing. Panic started to rise. What if someone recognized her? What if this neighborhood wasn't as safe as she pretended it was? Then he appeared, a knock on the window. A boy, a young man, maybe her age, sweat on his brow, a rag tucked into the waistband of his jeans, and kindness in his eyes. Need help? Zane's voice was rough with exhaustion but steady. Alina blinked. I think it's the battery, she lied, hoping he wouldn't see through her. Pop the hood, he said, already moving around to the front. She did. He worked quickly, hands precise, movements confident. In less than 10 minutes, the car sputtered to life. You're good to go, he said, wiping his hands. Thanks, that was amazing, she said, unsure how to act. He nodded, clearly ready to move on. Do you want something? Like a tip? Nah, you look like you've had a rough day. I don't charge people who look like they're running from something. That stopped her. I'm not. You're wearing designer sneakers under a cheap hoodie, he said with a small grin. You've never parked a car in an alley before, and you've been looking over your shoulder since you got here. She stared at him. Who are you? Just a mechanic. Who are you? No one important. And with that, she drove off, but her heart stayed behind. The next week, she came back, and the next. She kept the car in poor condition on purpose, just to have a reason. He always helped. He never pried. She began to open up, a little each time. Told him her name was Leah. Told him she was between jobs. Told him she liked the graffiti around the market. He laughed sometimes. She laughed too. Zane began to wait for her visits. He wouldn't admit it to himself, but his days felt emptier when she didn't come. She brought him tea once, then books, then a sandwich she said she made herself. He never asked why she smelled faintly of perfume worth more than his paycheck, or why she flinched when police cars drove by. One night, they sat on the hood of her car after he'd changed the oil. The stars were faint, but the moment was sharp. I don't even know your real name, he said. What if you did? She asked, voice low. Would it change things? Only if you let it. She looked at him, really looked. It's Alina. He didn't flinch, didn't gape, just nodded. Nice to meet you, Alina. Something about the way he said it made her want to cry. Weeks turned into months. She told him about her dreams, painting, traveling, never inheriting the Monroe hotels. He told her about his plans, opening his own garage, taking his sister to college, never begging for a handout. They never kissed, but they held each other in words, in glances, in the kind of understanding that only grows in quiet, stolen moments. But life wasn't kind to secrets. One evening, as they walked down the Old Market Street, a sleek black car rolled to a stop. Beside them, Alina's mother stepped out. Her heels clicked like gunfire against the pavement. Alina Monroe, get in the car, now. Zane froze. Alina's face drained of color. Mom, please, you've embarrassed this family enough. I should have known you'd find a gutter rat to roll around with. Don't talk about him like that. Get in the car. Alina turned to Zane. I'm sorry, go, he whispered, his voice like breaking glass. It's okay. No, it's not. Don't make it worse for yourself. He took a step back. Go. She did. The car drove away. Zane stood in the street long after the tail lights disappeared. She didn't return for days. Then, weeks. Her phone was taken, her freedom stripped. She was shipped to Europe under the guise of character development. Zane kept working. He poured everything into his job, but the hollow inside him grew. One afternoon, while walking home from work, he spotted a flyer posted on a lamppost near the market entrance. At first, he didn't care. Then he stopped, looked again, his breath caught. It was an invitation, a black tie gala, hosted by the Monroe family. Alina's face, perfect and polished, smiled coldly from the bottom of the page. He felt like someone had punched him. That night, rain fell like tears from the sky. Zane stood on the roof of the garage, staring at the city below. He held the flyer in his hand, crumpled it, but something inside him sparked. He wasn't done, not yet. Across the ocean, Alina sat by her window in a Paris penthouse, sketchbook untouched in her lap. She had smiled at press events, worn dresses worth thousands, nodded at men twice her age, but her soul ached for a boy who smelled of motor oil and looked at her like she wasn't broken. Her mother entered the room. Get dressed. We're heading to New York next week. Alina looked up. For what? The annual Monroe Summit. I'm not going. You are. And you will smile. And you will forget about that boy. Alina didn't answer. But that night, she tore the sketch of Zane from her book, folded it carefully, tucked it into her purse. 3 weeks later, as the Monroe Gala unfolded in a grand ballroom shimmering with chandeliers, Zane stood outside the venue in a borrowed tuxedo and sneakers under his slacks. His friend Omar had helped him get a catering gig and paid, but enough to get him through the door. As he carried a tray of champagne through the crowd, he saw her, Alina, standing at the top of the grand staircase. She hadn't seen him yet. Her eyes scanned the crowd as if searching for something real in a sea of lies. Then their eyes met, and everything stopped. Before either could react, a loud voice rang out from the back of the ballroom. Someone call security. That's him. That's the boy who's been stalking Miss Monroe. Zane turned. A security guard pointed at him. More followed. Alina screamed. No, he's not, but the crowd had already begun to turn. Zane dropped the tray and ran. Zane didn't stop running until the glittering lights of the Monroe Ballroom were swallowed by the dark streets of downtown. Rain slicked the pavement, masking the sound of his footsteps and washing away the sting of embarrassment that clung to his skin. His chest heaved, not from exertion, but from the chaos that had exploded around him. He had never imagined their reunion would be like that. Accused, hunted, treated like a criminal. Alina's face haunted him, her wide eyes filled with horror, her voice screaming in his defense. But it hadn't mattered. In the world she belonged to, his voice didn't count. And yet, as he ducked into a side alley and leaned against the wet brick wall, he couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over, not yet. Somewhere in that ballroom, behind those polished glass doors and beneath those diamond chandeliers, she still carried his name in her heart. Inside the Monroe mansion, Alina was in chaos. Her heels echoed like gunshots on the marble as she stormed away from the ballroom, brushing past guests who whispered behind fans and wine glasses. Her mother caught up to her near the elevator. Alina, don't make a scene. You already did that for me, she snapped. How dare you accuse him of something like that? He doesn't belong here. He never will. You don't get to decide that. I do, as long as you carry our name and live under our legacy. Legacy? All we have is money and shame. Her mother slapped her. The echo stunned both of them. For a moment, Alina didn't move. Then she whispered, "That's the last time you ever touch me." She turned and walked away, this time with tears stinging her eyes, not from pain, but from fury. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in her room staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment when she saw Zane, saw him smile just slightly when their eyes met. That look had shattered her. The next morning, she was gone before the house staff had even begun breakfast. She didn't take her driver, didn't use her credit cards, just left a note and vanished. It took her hours to find him. She didn't know where he lived, but she knew where he worked. She waited near the garage, ignoring the strange looks from mechanics and clients. When he finally walked out of the back lot, she ran to him. Zane, he froze. What are you doing here? I had to see you. You shouldn't have. Come. I didn't know they were going to do that, I swear. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. You think I wanted that? To see you humiliated in front of all those people? It's not the first time someone like me has been thrown out by people like you. I'm not them, but you're with them. That's what matters. She stepped closer. Please, I need to talk to you. You've already said enough. He turned to go back inside. She grabbed his arm. Zane, I left my family. I walked away from all of it. That stopped him. He turned slowly, eyes dark and unreadable. Why would you do something like that? Because I'd rather be poor and honest with you than rich and empty with them. He searched her face for a long time, then sighed. You're crazy. You're not the first to say that. He shook his head, a reluctant smile tugging at his mouth. Come on, you're soaked. He led her to a small diner across the street where the booths were torn and the coffee was terrible, but for Alina, it felt more like home than any ballroom. They talked for hours about what had happened, about what they wanted, about how impossible everything seemed. Zane confessed he almost left the city that night. Alina admitted she had no plan at all. We can't just be together like nothing happened, he said finally. Your world doesn't just let you walk away. Then we'll make a new world. He gave a bitter laugh. It's not that simple. Then we'll fight for it. What happens when they come looking for you? They already are. As if summoned by her words, the diner door opened and two men in suits walked in. Alina's heart dropped. Zane reached for her hand instinctively. The men looked around, spotted her, and approached. Miss Monroe, one of them said, your family is worried. I'm not going back. You don't have a choice. Actually, she does, Zane said, standing. Step aside, sir. You'll have to go through me. For a moment, it looked like the men might try. But then one of them pulled out a phone. If you don't come quietly, we'll involve the police. Alina paled. What do I do? She whispered. Come with me, Zane said, grabbing her hand. They ran out the back, through the kitchen, and into the alley behind the diner. The men followed. Zane led her through winding streets, through shortcuts only someone who grew up here would know. They finally stopped near an old train station. Breathing hard, hands still intertwined. That was close, she said. Too close. They won't stop. Then we won't either. Alina, I'm serious. I'll live anywhere, do anything, just not without you. His eyes searched hers. Then he leaned in and kissed her. It was raw, overdue, and honest. When they pulled apart, Zane whispered, okay, let's disappear. They found an old friend of his, a man named Jamal who ran a body shop and rented rooms above his garage. Jamal didn't ask questions. He handed them a key and told them to keep quiet. The room was tiny, the walls thin, and the floor cold, but for Alina, it felt like freedom. Days passed. They lived on cheap noodles and dreams. Zane found temporary work, and Alina taught art lessons at a community center. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was building something that mattered. But the world they left behind wasn't done with them. One evening, Alina returned to the room, to find the door slightly open. Zane wasn't home yet. She stepped inside, heart pounding. The room looked untouched, but something was wrong. A note lay on the bed, just 3 words. He's in danger. The paper shook in her hands. At that moment, her phone, one she had hidden and kept off, buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. Come alone to the rooftop of Monroe Tower, or you'll never see him again. She stared at it, panic rising like a tide. Zane had gone to pick up groceries. He hadn't come back. Her hands trembled. She grabbed the note, the phone, and her coat. Outside, the night was silent, but the war had begun. The Monroe Tower stood like a monolith above the city, sleek glass cutting through the clouds, its lights glittering like cold stars in the night sky. Alina had never approached it from the outside like this before, from the sidewalk, looking up, feeling small. For years, it had been her kingdom. Now it was enemy territory. Her fingers curled around the note in her pocket as she slipped through the side entrance, dressed in black, hair tucked under a hood. She had memorized the service routes during long hours of childhood boredom. She moved quickly through back corridors and up the maintenance stairwell, No cameras here, no witnesses. Just the pulse of panic in her chest and the silent dread that something had happened to Zayn. When she reached the rooftop door, the wind howled like a warning. Her hand hesitated on the handle. Then she pushed it open. The night hit her like a wave, cold, fierce. The city spread out below like a field of fireflies. And at the far end of the rooftop, under the red glow of a blinking antenna light, stood her mother. And beside her Zayn, tied to a chair, his face bruised, blood on his lip. Rage exploded inside her. "Let him go," she screamed. Her mother turned slowly. "Alina, you came. I'm glad. What the hell is this? This is the end of your little rebellion. You kidnapped him? I protected you. From yourself. From this mistake? He's not a mistake. He's a liability. A threat. And you're going to walk away from him tonight. Or he's not walking off this roof. You wouldn't dare. You think I haven't done worse?" Zayn coughed, lifted his head. "Don't listen to her. Just go." "No," Alina said, stepping forward. "I'm not leaving you again." "Alina," her mother said, voice sharp, "if you take another step, I swear do it." Alina snapped. "Push me, hurt him, kill us both, but you will never own me again." Her mother's expression faltered, then hardened. "You're too young to understand the cost of choices." "No," Alina said, her voice shaking. "I've paid it every day of my life, and I'm done." Suddenly, another figure stepped from the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, a face Alina recognized from years of banquets and board meetings. Edward Kingsley, her father's old business partner. "That's enough," he said to Alina's mother. "She's right. This has gone too far. You stay out of this, Edward. No, you've lost her. And if you do this, you lose the company too." "What are you talking about?" "I've already spoken to the board. They'll remove you for instability. For criminal behavior. You want to protect the Monroe name? Then let the boy go." Silence hung heavy in the air. Alina's mother stared at Edward, at Alina, at the city. Then she turned to the guard beside her and nodded once. Zayn was released. He stumbled forward, into Alina's arms. She held him, tears spilling silently. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Don't be. I couldn't fight them. You don't have to anymore." Edward stepped forward. "You two need to disappear. For good. I'll make sure she can't reach you again. But you can't stay here." "Where will we go?" Zayn asked. "Anywhere," Alina said, gripping his hand. "As long as we go together." Within hours, they were on a train out of the city. No luggage, no plans, just each other. They traveled west, finding small towns, small jobs, small pockets of peace. For the first time, their love had no audience, no walls. They worked during the day, cafes, bookstores, repair shops. At night, they curled into each other and built new dreams out of old wounds. But peace never lasts. One morning, Zayn went out to buy groceries. When he returned, Alina was gone. The apartment door was open. Her jacket still hung on the chair. Her phone lay on the floor, screen cracked, and a single envelope sat on the table. He tore it open, hands trembling. Inside was a note, typed in bold letters. "If you want to see her alive again, come alone. PM. The docks. Don't be late." Zayn stood frozen, the note trembling in his hands as a cold wind from the cracked window blew through the room like a whisper of threat. The handwriting was machine-typed, emotionless, yet every word bled menace. The moment he had feared since. The rooftop confrontation had finally come. Someone had found them and taken her. His chest tightened until breathing felt like swallowing broken glass. He looked at the time. 4:13 p.m. The docks. PM alone. No police. No warning. No second chances. He didn't waste a second. He packed nothing. He didn't call Jamal or Edward or anyone. If this was a trap, he'd walk into it. If they wanted a fight, he'd give it. But he'd find her, or die trying. The docks were desolate when he arrived. The sky hung heavy with charcoal clouds, and the smell of salt, rust, and old oil clung to everything. Cargo crates loomed like silent watchers. Wind whipped around him as he scanned the shadows. No sound but the creaking of metal and the occasional shriek of seagulls. Then, a whistle, low, 3 short notes. It came from between 2 stacked containers. Zayn moved toward it, fists clenched. "You came," said a voice. A man stepped out of the shadows, mid-40s, clean suit, cruel smirk. Zayn didn't recognize him. "Where is she?" The man tilted his head. "You're braver than you look. Where is she?" "She's alive, for now. But let's not pretend you're in control. What do you want? We want you to disappear. Already did. No, not like this. We want you gone, out of her life, out of the country, away from everything. If you refuse, she dies. Why? What is this really about? The Monroes don't forget. They don't forgive. And most of all, they don't lose. You humiliated them. She betrayed them. This is the cost. She walked away on her own. You think that matters? The man tossed a phone toward him. Zane caught it. The screen lit up with a video. Alina, bound to a chair, duct tape across her mouth, her eyes wide and frantic. Behind her stood another man with a pistol resting on her shoulder. Zane's vision tunneled. What do I have to do? Get on the boat behind you. Head south. There's a passport and papers on board. You vanish. She lives. Let me talk to her. No, I need proof she's alive. That she'll be safe. Trust us. That's the problem. The man gave a humorless laugh. If you try anything, she dies. If you go to the police, she dies. If you stay, she dies. And if I go, she lives? That's the deal. Zane looked down at the boat, then back at the phone, still glowing with her terrified image. He swallowed hard. Tell her I love her. You don't get to say goodbye. Then I'm not going. Then she dies. Right now. The man raised a walkie-talkie. Zane lunged. They struggled in the gravel, fists flying, feet slipping. Zane landed a punch that cracked bone, then grabbed the walkie-talkie and smashed it against the dock. Alarms blared in his mind, but he wasn't thinking anymore, just moving. He grabbed the man's gun, shoved him back, and took off running into the maze of containers. Bullets whizzed past him, shouts echoed. Someone had called backup. Zane dodged between stacks, heart thundering, mind racing. He didn't know how many were after him. He didn't care. He had a gun now, and he had one goal: find Alina. He ducked under a half-open gate and into a long row of rusted warehouses. Darkness swallowed him. He crouched behind a pile of old equipment, catching his breath, the taste of blood and sweat thick on his tongue. Somewhere, they had her. Somewhere nearby. He moved silently, scanning each building. Then he heard it. A soft banging, muffled, repeated, a cry. He followed it, edging around corners, pistol raised. The sound led him to a side door, padlocked. He fired once. The lock shattered. Inside was pitch black. The smell of mildew and fuel hit him like a slap. He moved slowly, step by step. Then a beam of moonlight from a broken window fell across the far wall and he saw her. Alina, gagged, hands bound to a chair, her eyes locked onto his. She screamed through the tape. Zane ran forward, dropping the gun, tearing the gag from her mouth. Zane, behind you. A sharp pain exploded at the back of his head. He stumbled forward, then collapsed. The world blurred. Two men dragged him upright, slamming him against the wall. Alina screamed again. Let him go. Please, please. One of the men grabbed Zane's chin. You just couldn't walk away, could you? Kill me. Zane spat. But let her go. We're going to kill you both. No. Alina twisted violently, chair crashing to the ground. One of the men pulled out a blade. It's a shame, he said. All this for a girl who was never meant to love you. Zane looked up, eyes full of fury. You're wrong. She saved me. The blade flashed downward. A gunshot echoed. The man jerked backward and collapsed. Alina gasped. The second man turned to slow. Another shot. He dropped. Blood sprayed the walls. Zane blinked. A third figure stepped out from the shadows, tall, familiar. Edward Kingsley. Told you I'd keep her safe, he said, lowering his gun. Alina sobbed as Zane stumbled to her side, untying her with shaking hands. You're okay, he whispered. I thought I lost you. I knew you'd come. Edward holstered the weapon. We need to leave, now. This place won't be empty for long. Where will we go? Alina asked. Farther, Edward said. South America. I've arranged everything. New identities. You'll be ghosts. Zane hesitated. You'd do that for us? She's the daughter I never had. And you're the man she chose. That's enough. They didn't argue. They ran, again, through the back door, into a waiting car. Edward drove like a man possessed. By sunrise, they were on a private plane heading south. The sky turned gold as the city shrank behind them. Alina slept in Zane's arms, and for a moment, he let himself believe it was finally over. But halfway through the flight, Edward pulled Zane aside. There's something you need to know. What is it? Your past. It's not what you think. What are you talking about? Edward handed him a small envelope. Inside was a photograph, faded, torn. A young woman, smiling, holding a baby. Zane blinked. "Who is this?" "Your mother," Edward said quietly. "And she wasn't just anyone." "What do you mean?" "She was a Monroe." Zane's heart stopped. "That's not possible. Your mother was disowned before you were born. She fell in love with the wrong man, your father. They ran, hid. She died giving birth to you. Your real name is Zane Monroe." The plane hit turbulence, but it was nothing compared to the storm now roaring inside him. Everything he knew had just shattered. And Alina was not just the love of his life. She might also be his blood. The plane sliced through dawn's glow as Zane sat motionless in the private cabin, Edward's words ringing louder than the engines. "Your real name is Zane Monroe." He stared at the faded photograph. The woman's eyes were familiar. Her soft features, the way she cradled the infant. That infant was him. And that name, Monroe, was not just the name of Alina's legacy. It was his too. The blood he had spent his life running from now tied him to her in a way neither of them could ever have imagined. "How long have you known?" Zane finally asked, his voice hoarse. Edward leaned against the frame of the cabin door, guilt heavy in his expression. "A long time. I recognized your mother's face the moment I saw you at that hospital gala. I had known her when we were kids. She was warm, defiant, like you. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you weren't ready. And because, if anyone else had found out your mother's enemies, the family, you'd be dead already." "Does Alina know?" Edward shook his head. "Not yet. I thought it should come from you." Zane's thoughts spun like blades. The girl he loved, was she his cousin? His half-sister? His enemy? Or was the truth even more tangled than that? He looked over at her, still asleep under the soft blanket, her breath calm against the chaos unraveling around him. She looked peaceful. But what would she think when she knew? Would she still see him the same way? Would she still want him? The plane landed in a small coastal town in southern Chile, foggy, quiet, hidden from the maps that mattered. Edward handed them new passports. Lucas and Mara Reyes, married, Venezuelan, tourist visas. A small house had been prepared for them on a hill overlooking the ocean. It was rustic, warm, isolated. Zane lit a fire the first night, but he couldn't feel the heat. Alina sensed it. "You've been quiet," she said, curling beside him. "Something happened." He didn't respond. "Zane?" He looked at her, and the words spilled. Everything, from the photo, to Edward's truth, to the terrifying possibility that their love wasn't just dangerous, it might be forbidden. Alina went pale, then silent. She pulled away, walked to the window, her reflection fractured in the glass. The sea beyond crashed against the rocks like it too was outraged. "Say something," Zane begged. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "It's not your fault. But this changes everything. We don't even know if it's true. There could be mistakes or it could be real. But our hearts knew each other before our names ever did." Alina turned, eyes brimming. "And if we're related by blood, then we'll deal with it. But if there's even a chance we're not, Zane, we've loved each other with everything. What if we were never meant to?" He stood, pacing. "Fate doesn't care about names or rules. We were drawn to each other before we knew any of this. That means something." She didn't answer. That night, they slept on opposite sides of the bed. Days passed. The village life was calm, markets, fishing boats, quiet waves, but inside the house, a storm grew. They moved around each other like strangers caught in the same exile. They spoke little, touched less. Then one morning, Edward returned. He brought documents, more photographs, records, proof. "Her name was Elena Monroe," he said, laying them out. "She was Evelyn's younger sister. The family disowned her at 19. Because of your father. So we're cousins." Zane said flatly. Edward nodded. "First cousins." Alina stepped back, visibly trembling. "We didn't know," she whispered. "But it doesn't change what we did. It's the past," Edward said. "In some parts of the world, even first cousins marry. But I understand. It's hard. It's impossible," she said, voice cracking. "We were going to build a life. Now it's tainted." "It's not," Zane argued. "It's ours. Maybe we weren't born into the story we wanted, but we made something real. That matters." But Alina turned away. That night, she packed a small bag. "Where are you going?" Zane asked. "To find myself," she said. "To figure out who I am outside of you, outside of the Monroes. I need space, Zane. I need time." "Don't do this," he begged. We can survive this. We've survived so much already. But this isn't about survival anymore. It's about peace. And I can't find mine until I know who I am. She kissed him gently on the cheek like the end of a dream and walked out into the night. He watched until her silhouette vanished into the fog. For weeks, she sent no letters, no calls. Zayn wandered the cliffs every morning, hoping to see her return. He kept the fire going at night, kept her favorite sweater folded at the foot of the bed. The silence became part of him. Then, one afternoon, Edward returned again. His face was grim. There's been an accident, he said. A bus, northern Peru. She was on it. Zayn's knees gave out. She's gone? They haven't found her body, just the wreck, and a bag with her name, so she could still be alive. Edward hesitated. It's possible, but unlikely. She's alive, Zayn said fiercely. I'd feel it if she wasn't. That night, Zayn stood at the edge of the cliff, wind tearing through his clothes. He stared at the Black Sea. A single memory played in his mind, her laugh, wild and free, the night they danced barefoot under city lights. He closed his eyes. I'll find you, he whispered, no matter where you are. Behind him, the fire in the house flickered, and on the wind, faint as breath, came a voice he almost believed he imagined. Zayn. The wind howled along the cliff's edge as Zayn stood motionless, the last syllable of her voice, real or imagined, still echoing through the night. He turned slowly, heart racing, but there was no one, only the ocean and the cold, hollow sound of waves crashing below. He hadn't slept in days. He'd stopped eating. His world was fading without her in it, like color draining from a painting. Edward tried to pull him back. You need rest. If she's alive, you'll need your strength to find her. But Zayn couldn't stop. He pored over maps, border records, bus manifests, anything. The reports from Peru were vague. A landslide had sent the vehicle tumbling off a mountainside road. The wreckage was unreachable. No bodies recovered. Alina's bag was found a few kilometers away, soaked in river mud, partially torn. That was all. Weeks passed, then months. Zayn followed every lead, sleeping in cars, eating from street vendors, questioning strangers, posting photos. He moved like a ghost through towns in Ecuador, then Colombia. Edward sent money quietly, watching from afar. Each time Zayn got close, hope flared only to vanish in smoke. In Bogota, a hotel clerk remembered her, said she'd been with a local doctor, injured but alive. The doctor was gone. The trail ended in a village near the Caribbean coast. There, Zayn found a man who spoke carefully, eyes flicking to the jungle behind him. There was a woman, looked like her, didn't talk much. Left one night with a backpack, said she was going to the water. The ocean? Zayn asked. The man nodded. No one ever comes back from there. But Zayn went. He chartered a boat, sailed through days of storms and silence, found nothing. Only a faded hair tie tangled on a mangrove root that reminded him of her. His hope flickered lower, until one day, in a border town deep in Panama, he found a mural. Spray painted across a crumbling alley wall was a woman's silhouette. Her hair wild, her stance proud, her eyes fierce. And beneath it, in Spanish, I choose my name, I choose my life. She was alive. Zayn felt it like a lightning strike. She was leaving signs, not for the world but for him. He followed them, symbols carved into bus stops, a ribbon tied to a cafe chair, chalk hearts drawn beside payphones. She was staying hidden, but also reaching out. Zayn began to respond, carving her name in tree trunks, leaving pressed flowers on benches. He wrote her a letter in a bottle and cast it into the Amazon. Another month passed. Then, one quiet dawn, back in Chile, Edward met Zayn at the old cliffside house. You need to come inside, he said, voice oddly calm. Zayn hesitated, walked in. The house smelled different, warm, familiar. And there, standing beside the hearth, wearing the same sweater he'd kept folded for months, was Alina. She looked thinner, tired, but her eyes lit up like stars the moment she saw him. He dropped to his knees. I thought I lost you. She ran to him, pulled him into her arms, sobbing. I almost didn't come back. Why did you? Because I couldn't run from myself forever. And because I missed the way you say my name. They held each other for a long time. When they finally pulled apart, Zayn touched her face. Gently. The truth still stands between us. It does, she whispered. But I've stopped seeing it as poison. Maybe we were meant to break the Monroe curse. Maybe our love isn't a mistake, it's a revolution. And if the world never understands, then we'll love in secret, like the legends. For the first time in months, they smiled, laughed. They walked through the town that night, hand in hand, as if claiming it, as if saying to the world, we're still here, but peace never lingers long, not for people like them. The next morning, Edward brought a letter. It was sealed in black wax, a symbol etched on its face, a lion curled around a crown. Zane's blood froze. This is from the Monroe patriarch, Edward said, the one who sits at the top of the family's private council. What does it say? They know where you are. They know you're alive. And they've decided. It's time to reclaim what they lost. Me? Zane asked. No, both of you. Edward handed over a second envelope, this one thinner. Inside was a formal wedding invitation. What is this? Alina asked, confused. A trap? No, Edward said. It's a demand. They want you to return, to marry under the family's terms, to rejoin the bloodline publicly. Why would they want that now? Zane asked. Because you're both Monroe by blood, and the family is dying. No heirs strong enough, no legacy left intact. You're their future, together. But we rejected them, that's why. They want you back even more, because you made a story the world can't ignore. Love, rebellion, danger. They want to control the narrative. Alina stepped back. And if we say no, then they destroy everything you've built. We don't need them, Zane said. But Alina looked at the letter differently. Maybe it's not just a trap. Maybe it's an opportunity. To be what? Puppets? To change the family. From inside. Edward frowned. It's dangerous. So is everything we've done, Alina replied. But we didn't come this far to hide forever. Zane took her hand. Whatever we do together. Always, she said. And so, under a blood-orange sky, they packed their things. And the next day, 2 tickets were booked on a jet bound for Manhattan, where the Monroes ruled their empire like gods behind glass. But as the plane soared through twilight, a third envelope remained unopened in Edward's briefcase. A final letter, addressed to Alina, and inside, written in a familiar hand, you think you know who you are, but the truth hasn't even begun to hurt yet. When you land, you'll understand. He's not who you think he is. No signature, no return address, just a single word at the bottom. Father. The jet descended through a blanket of gray over Manhattan. Zane held Alina's hand as the skyline appeared, sharp and cold like a crown of glass. The invitation to rejoin the Monroe family burned in his jacket pocket, but the real fire was in the letter Edward had yet to show them, its words waiting like a trapdoor beneath their feet. When they landed, black cars met them. Men in tailored suits nodded, but didn't speak. Edward didn't get in with them. I'll join you later, he said. His eyes lingered on Alina a little too long, guilt buried in the lines around his mouth. She didn't notice, but Zane did. They were driven through the city to a high-rise that shimmered like a monolith of wealth. Inside, the Monroe estate rose 20 floors high, draped in white marble and portraits of ancestors whose gazes followed them. Zane hated it instantly. Alina stood straighter as they entered the inner chamber, a room lit by 1,000 candles, and an old man in a dark velvet suit seated beneath a chandelier. Welcome, the man said. His voice was quiet but powerful, like a spell. Alina, and Zane, or should I say, Zane Monroe, you summoned us, Alina said flatly. Why? Because the world loves a good story, and yours has spread like wildfire. The runaway heiress, the poor boy with noble blood, the impossible romance, the scandal, the loss, and the return. We're not here to be used, Zane snapped. The old man smiled. On the contrary, you're here because the family needs its legacy renewed. You two are the perfect face of that resurrection. We'll arrange a wedding. The world will watch. Stocks will soar. Power will be preserved. Alina stepped forward. And if we say no, you won't? You think I'll marry for a name? She asked. No. The old man said. You'll marry because if you don't, everything you care about will disappear. That house in Chile, already reclaimed. The villagers, paid to forget. Edward, he's on borrowed time. You're threatening us, Zane said. I'm making you understand your position. You are Monroe's. You belong to this. Alina turned to Zane, something sparking behind her eyes. She took his hand again, but this time it felt like armor. We'll do it, she said. Zane stiffened. What? We'll give them the show. The wedding, the speeches, the photos, but not for them. For us? The patriarch's smile widened. A wise decision. But on our terms, Alina added. We write the vows, we pick the guests, we control the cameras. You get your legacy. And then we leave, forever. You don't walk away from the Monroe name, he warned. Watch us, she whispered. The days blurred into preparation. Lavish fittings, gold calligraphy, global headlines. The Monroe heirs reunite, a wedding to save a dynasty. But behind the glamour, Zane watched Alina closely. She was planning something. She whispered to Edward. She made calls at night. She visited an abandoned warehouse with strange men in suits. He asked her once. She said, "Trust me." He did. Even when it scared him. On the day of the wedding, the sky broke open with rain. The venue was the Monroe Cathedral, a building older than the city, draped in ivy and stained glass. The world watched as Alina walked down the aisle in a dress that shimmered like stormlight. Zane waited at the altar, heart pounding, not with joy, with dread. She reached him, took his hands, and whispered, "No matter what happens, remember that I love you." The priest began. Cameras clicked. The patriarch smiled from the front row. Then it happened. Alina reached into her bouquet, pulled out a small silver device, and pressed a button. All the lights died. Gasps, screams, then silence. A spotlight returned shining on the cathedral's back doors, and Edward walked in, flanked by federal agents. The Monroe Empire, he shouted, has been operating a financial web of crime, corruption, and political bribery for decades. And we have proof. Chaos exploded. Cameras turned. Reporters scrambled. The patriarch stood enraged. Zane turned to Alina. "What did you do?" She smiled, tears in her eyes. "I ended it. For us." The agents arrested half the board. The patriarch fought, cursed, spat. But Alina walked calmly to him, whispered something only he could hear. His face collapsed. He sank into his chair like a dying king. Outside, the sky began to clear. Later, Zane and Alina stood on a rooftop overlooking the city. "I never wanted revenge," she said. "I just wanted us to be free." "You were brilliant," he said, voice cracking. "But you should have told me. You wouldn't have let me do it." "You're right." They kissed, slow and broken and whole. Weeks later, the Monroe name was gone from the news. The family was scattered. The tower was sold. Zane and Alina disappeared again. This time by choice. They bought a cabin in Norway, woke up to snow, learned to build fires, learned to be quiet. Sometimes they'd walk by the lake, fingers brushing. Sometimes they'd sit for hours and not speak at all. They didn't need to. The world had tried to script their lives, but now, they were writing it themselves. One morning, Alina handed him a sketchbook. Inside was a drawing of a little boy, his smile crooked, his hair dark. Zane looked up, speechless. "You're going to be a father," she said. And for the first time in a long time, there was no past, only a future. And love, always love.